What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at The Invisible Agent, starring John Hall. The Invisible Agent is the fourth installment into the Invisible Man franchise, and to me, this is the true third chapter of the Invisible Man saga. This movie completely ignores the events of the Invisible Woman and pretty much picks up where the Invisible Man Returns left off. This movie follows Frank Griffin Jr., who is the grandson of Frank Griffin Sr., who is a character from The Invisible Man Returns. He's been drafted by the U.S. military in order to get secrets from the Axis powers. But in order to do so, he has to use the Invisible Serum in order to accomplish this goal and mission. So yeah, that's the overall premise of The Invisible Agent. Now, how do I feel about this movie? Okay, well, I'll say this. I appreciate this movie went back to the tone of the first two movies. It takes itself more seriously than the Invisible Woman did. It feels like a continuation of the story that was established in the first two movies. With that being said, this movie isn't really all that interesting, at least to me. I don't think the storyline was anything to write home about. But does that make this a bad movie? No, I enjoyed this movie more than I enjoyed The Invisible Woman. At least this movie tried to recapture the same ambiance as the first two movies. We bring back a Griffin character, who is synonymous with the Invisible Man movies. I don't like the fact that this movie kind of retcons Jack Griffin out of the storyline and pretty much says that Frank Sr. was the one who invented the serum. What happened to Jack? Jack Griffin was the original Invisible Man. He's the one that created the Invisible Serum. Now all of a sudden, Frank Sr. from the Invisible Man Returns has been retconned as the creator, and Jack Griffin just doesn't exist anymore. I wasn't a fan of that. Did not like that whatsoever. And the whole thing and this movie also has, U.S. propaganda written all over it. This movie came out on the heels of World War II, so there's a lot of like America fuck yeah, and Germany and Japan bad. So this is a very propaganda heavy movie, but at the same time, it does create an interesting concept. What if the U.S. military had the Invisible Serum and they used it to infiltrate enemy lines? And the movie does explore that with the storyline. So I give it credit for being, somewhat creative. I think John Hall as Frank Jr., he's a decent leading man. He doesn't have the theatrical presence of a Claude Rains nor the subdued charisma of Vincent Price. But for what he brought to the role, he pretty much comes across as an everyman, and he's relatable. He works in the movie for me as the lead. He has decent on-screen chemistry with the actress who plays Maria, who is basically his love interest. And I do like the scenes where he's trying to fight off the Nazis and the Japanese in order to obtain the mission, to accomplish his mission. The special effects by John P. Fulton, they're basically no different than how they were in the last three movies. I give the movie credit for being a little bit more creative in terms of the disguise. No longer does the Invisible Man have to use bandages. He now uses a face cream, which basically gives him back a face in a way. So I appreciate that for the most part. That wasn't too bad. Does this movie have a lot of areas where I think it drags on longer than it should? Yeah, I think it does. Specifically when you get to the 30-minute mark, there are a lot of fight scenes that are just dragged on longer than they should be. And to me, it takes forever to get to the climax. There are also certain moments where the movie kind of takes a page out of the Invisible Woman's playbook and does a lot of slapstick comedy. I would prefer the sardonic humor from the first two movies as opposed to the slapstick comedy, because with the tone that this movie is trying to create, having that over-the-top comedy doesn't really work for me. And it's really prevalent when this Nazi general named Karl is having dinner with Maria, and hijinks ensues with Griffin Jr. just playing mind games with him. Putting a chicken bone in his pocket, spilling stuff on him, putting a fork on the chair. You get chuckles here and there, but it kind of makes it a little bit uneven, because the rest of the movie has like a somber tone to it, and then you get moments of just awkward slapstick. So I would have done away with that and gone more with the sardonic humor that was established in the first two movies. The movie does boast a very decent supporting cast. You got Peter Lorre, who plays a doctor named Idiko, who is working with the Nazis to get the Invisible Serum. He's okay in the role. Peter Lorre's done better things in this. This role just seems kind of forgettable to me personally. And some of the actors who played Germans, they did a really bad job at portraying German accents. There's literally a scene where these Germans clearly have thick American accents, and they're doing absolutely nothing to disguise that. It could be very off-putting when you're watching this movie. I mean, I understand. This movie was made in the 1940s, but even then you had actors that can do accents pretty well. So it's really no excuse that these guys couldn't at least attempt to do a German accent. But yeah, those are pretty much my thoughts on The Invisible Agent. It's not a horrible movie by any stretch of the imagination. I put it on par with The Invisible Woman, though I think this movie is slightly better because it does retain this, because it does go back to the tone of the first two movies, but also has problems of its own that I just didn't really care for. So with all that being said, I'm going to give The Invisible Agent a solid... I'm going to be generous. I'm going to give it a solid 6 out of 10. It's a decent movie, and I consider this to be the true third sequel because it goes back to the first two movies and picks up the Griffin storyline. So yeah, those are my thoughts for The Invisible Agent. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.